I'd like to call the City Council as a whole committee to order this evening. We will continue with the budget hearings. Tonight, councilors, we have the Finance Administration Group. We will be starting with the Auditor's Department, which is on page 17. Good evening, Mr. Saracen.
Good evening, councilors.
We will start with Personal Services, $164,370. Auditor expenses, $4,000. Audit services, $60,000. Total budget, $228,370. Would you like to comment before that?
Yeah, very briefly, thank you for having me here. Under Auditor Personal Services, I am expressing the need for more help in the department, more at a professional level, such as replacing or bringing back an assistant auditor or an analyst, or to something to that effect. I did have a discussion with the mayor. I thought it was a good discussion, and we agree that we're going to pursue this with further discussions with myself, the mayor, and maybe the other finance team. So hopefully something will come of this to help out the department. The other point is the head clerk in my department is she's been there for many years. She's up for retirement. She's planning to retire in probably the beginning of next year, so that's why you see the sick leave buyback for $9,000. Other than that, the expenses are pretty much level funded. They're down a little bit, but hopefully we'll be okay. In the event that I need more training for either a new head clerk or any other staff changes, you know, I may need some help there. The audit, it is the typical, we're budgeting, we don't have a final number from the auditors whom we contract with next year. In addition to that, the actuary, that is the actuary that is done to calculate the liability, which is unfunded for the city, for it's OPEB. It means other post-employment benefits. That's for health and life insurance for all us employees that are becoming vested, and also the people that have already retired. They calculate what our life expectancy and what we would owe those people. That was a report that was released, I think, this year, a couple months ago, and it has to be done every 2 years. That is a requirement of accounting standards for governments. So what happens is that report is provided to us as well as the outside auditors, and it's integrated into the financial statements every year.
Questions or comments from the councilors? Councilor Tran.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Saracen, could it be possible that you mentioned the retirement of the head clerk, that going forward we do away with that position and possibly increase the salary and hire an assistant auditor that could do the clerical work and assist you at the same time?
That's a good question. It has come up in discussion, and it is something I would welcome further discussion. And maybe we could find a way to help out in my department for clerical. And I think the burden is more at a higher level than a clerical. One point on this clerk, she's so good that she does help out many other departments of 1 or 2 department heads, so they don't have the clerical help. So I think we'd want to look at where they would get help. There are many departments where they're only a department of 1. So that is a good idea. I welcome that discussion further. Thank you.
I mentioned this before, and I believe my colleagues agree with me, is that you need an assistant. Your office need an assistant to your work, and I would applaud the mayor if she come up with the conclusion that we are able to hire someone to help you with your work, and I would absolutely support that.
I appreciate that, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Di Natale.
Would that position require CPA?
Not an assistant. The my position is, it was, when I came on many years ago, it was desired that the position was a CPA. I am a CPA, and I also have a master's, MBA, and so forth, and I went to Bentley for my bachelor's. But this position could run a wide range of gamut. I think my idea would be a similar position to the assistant to the treasurer. That person is a CPA, I think, although it isn't required. But technically, you want a good technical person that could handle the accounting and be able to help out when I'm away. And you never know, it could be a training for the next auditor, 6 or 7 years. You never know. If I make it and I retire, that would be nice.
I only ask that question because if you were to have an assistant that would probably be groomed to take over for you once you decide on what your future plans are, I would prefer that since they're ingrained in how things work. Having the extensive qualifications that you do, I was just curious if a future replacement when you do retire, in your opinion, should they have a master's with a CPA to do the kind of work that you do?
Well, I think, first of all, the assistant, if you have the requirements so high, you may have to compensate similar to mine. So you may not want to make those great, but it's up to that person to aspire and demonstrate that they want to go forward and maybe earn that as they're learning the ropes or going.
I agree, and
it could be anybody. When you go out, when you go out and hire, you want to get the best person. It may be internal, but it may not be.
you're not going to get somebody with a master's degree and a CPA doing that job for 60 grand. It's not going to happen.
I think
So-
you're right.
So, I mean, that's,
Right.
if we were to make that qualification, we're probably not going to find anybody for it. But I was just curious. Thank you.
Counsel Solomito.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Saracen, the clerk that you have there right now, I'm guessing that she's at her highest pay level?
Yes, she is.
So that if you were to begin with a new employee for next year, would it not seem reasonable to not appropriate $49,000 for the next clerk, assuming they would start at a lower entry-level fee?
That's possible, but typically, the type of clerk that we would look for is a head clerk at that level, and many of those, there are a pool of head clerks in the city that could bid on the job. So they may be a step or two behind, but you never know until you hire that person.
So that you're always going to get a head clerk at that high pay scale according to the matrix, or
Well, it may be at a lower step, though. Could
maybe
she's-
one or two at the most, though, then? So we're not going to be able to hire anybody at an entry-level fee? would you think?
Probably not. I mean, if I hire, we never know. If we hire from within the city, and it would probably be internal initially, and if that doesn't work, then you go on the outside, I believe. Fortunately, I haven't had to hire one in a while, so it's been easy as far as the process.
And if I could add, this would be a great time to decide whether we would want to hire a head clerk, or, as Councilor Di Natale and Councilor Tran stated, whether this is a good time to then hire the assistant auditor. And then we would have funding in there to have us be closer to our goal of what we would set that salary rate as.
Well, then my fear, and I'm not trying to interrupt, is that if you hire a...
Counsel, you're not interrupting when you have the floor.
All right, thank you. So you would make the decision ahead of time, either an assistant or a head clerk. My fear is you would hire a head clerk and then say, we now need an assistant, now you've hired two. So you'd go with the assistant.
One or the other. And I think we're actually beginning to have those discussions right now, and I think people are beginning to state their preferences or begin to weigh the pros and cons.
All right. That's all, thank you.
And if I could just comment, Councilor Solomito, well, I agree with you. When I saw this and I heard Mr. Saracen say the individual was contemplating retirement in January, I had the same exact thought. Will you get somebody starting in January so you could have a little bit of savings on this line item? But I think it's dangerous for us as a council and for the mayor to budget on speculation on somebody might retire. That person's individual circumstances could change between now and January, and if they stay, we would need to have that money in that line item.
Oh, and I apologize. I was under the impression that person had already made that determination, but it's really just contemplated, or just?
Well, it's fairly certain, but it could change, as you...
Okay,
we
all right.
all
I
know.
thought it had already been determined. All right, thank you.
It is the plan, her plan,
Okay.
but it is, nothing's been set in writing or anything at this point.
Thank you.
Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dick, our budgets only go back to fiscal year '07, and it shows that it's, that position of assistance is unfunded at that time. Does it go back further than that, or is that when it first started not to be funded?
My assistant left in November of '06, so I've been without an assistant for about 4 years.
I don't think I have to remind anybody, but I'm going to anyways, that the DOR cited this as one of our problems a couple of years ago, and we've done a lot in that report, and that report has been very helpful as a guide, but this is one thing that we've failed on, and this has to be taken care of this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Di Natale.
Just another question on, I mean, if we were to get some firm idea of her leaving in January, my concern is that we will not have someone ready in place by the time she goes, because my fear is there'll be a 3 or 4 month period where you're going to be doing all of her duties as well. And I really hope we don't get to a point where we don't have someone right away to replace this individual, so you're not doing 3 times more work on top of the many things that you're already doing. I hope we have someone ready to go on day one that prevents you from taking on clerical responsibilities.
I will be pushing to do something earlier, even earlier than that, and I'm sure with the mayor and, you know, we can try to work something out. We may have to come back to council if we need a little bit of supplemental funding anyway, so maybe we could front-load it where there could be an overlap where she could train, the clerk leaving could train part of the assistant. I know most of what the functions are, and there are other clerks that have helped in her absence, so. But that's a good point. I don't want to have that happen. It's not doable. It's hard enough with, you know, it's about $150 million that comes in and out of the city, and you're trying to account for it and run warrants, and you're it, and Marlene is it. So it's sustainable for a year or two, but beyond that, it really becomes very stressful.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Saracen. Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
We're going to move to page 50, employee benefits. Total, $22,687,000. Councilor Joseph.
We've budgeted up $1 million more for health insurance. And this year, it looks like you're going to be somewhere in the 10 or right around 11 million. It seems like you've got probably $900,000 that'll be left over, and you've gone up another $1 million.
The projection for, first of all, the status C is up through the end of May.
Right.
And there are things that happen in June that it's like a balloon month as far as the amount of money that hits that account. One, you get the teachers getting their lump sum payroll for the summer, so that there's another $400,000 hit. I'll round numbers. And then right now it's about, and then you have the new rates that kicked in on June 1st. So so it is, I think the projection is more like 11.4 for the year, and the projection for fiscal year, and I think it's a 12% increase. I didn't recalculate it, but we're going from 11.4, maybe an actual, or close, within 100,000, I would say, and we're going to 12.8. Now, the 12.8 is based on the population at the time that we, I think the mayor and Brian and them met with the PEC, and based on that population and the rates, it calculated by the consultant, they came up with $12,840,000. But between myself and the finance team and the mayor, we felt we could live with 12.8, which we did try to adjust down a lot of these based on actuals. You'll see they are a little bit closer, because some of them are on the high side. So 12.8 is presuming that there is some shifting, a little bit of shifting, and from what we heard, shifting to a cheaper plan, which would be cheaper on the city. So we feel comfortable with 12.8. But unfortunately, this year, unlike last year, there was the savings of $1 million. I don't have the actual. There was a savings of like $600,000 or thereabouts, mainly because of the concessions. But we didn't get any concessions this year, so we were stuck with the funding the new numbers, but with no further concessions in 11.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Di Natale.
Mr. President, can we make cut recommendations at the end of the meeting? I mean, I prefer to wait till the end, because I have a list.
Yes. Anytime during the meeting, Councilor.
Okay, because I know going forward that I'm going to get a lot of pushback from everybody about cuts from items that are down the pike. And everyone understands by now why I recommend these cuts, where I'm coming from, and the data that I use. So, I mean, I don't want to get into a shouting match or back and forth match with department heads. I don't expect any department head's going to say to me, yeah, cut my budget. It's not going to happen. So there are cuts in the employee benefits that I would like to propose.
Counselor, I would remind you that the city clerk did do that.
Oh, sorry. One exception, correct. I am going to propose a cut in workman's comp and health insurance. And they're not that major, but I'm going to wait till the end of this meeting. But those are the two areas I'd like to reduce. One area, the workman's comp, we've reduced that the last couple of years after our original budgets were appropriated, and I have a list right here of all the cuts from day one that I'd like to go over at the end of the meeting. But employee benefits, health insurance, and workman's comp, the cuts that I'll propose, I think the city can more than cover having those moved to maybe a reserve account for something else. Thank you.
Saracen?
Well, on workers' comp, I could see where the spending, we're probably looking at spending, I'll say, under $300,000 easily. But the one benefit of having one thing with workers' comp is in the event that you have someone really gets hurt, a disaster, whatever, you have the money some money in that account. Also, it benefits the city to, on the administration side and the legal side, to be in a position to possibly negotiate a settlement on a long-term case if there's money in it, if the timing is right, etc. So if you have some money and you're not, that's all on that one.
Councilor Salamito.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Saracen, on the unemployment, I noticed that from '09 to '10, there was a big jump on the unemployment cost. And I remember that during this past year, you came in with a request for more money, that because of the federal government extended unemployment, our costs naturally went up. So that was way beyond your control. Do you foresee that extension for unemployment coming again? I mean, I know I haven't kept up on it as I should, and I'm guessing that do you see unemployment benefits being extended again?
I did get some information, and presently there is discussion, I believe at the federal level, to do it on another extension. So we may get hit with some retro, and it would be a concern going forward. However, the monthly charge went from 140,000 to 90,000. Now we're down, the last 2 months, it was 7,000. So we're going to end the year, I think we've got about 171,000 on the status C left in that account. So that's why, and so we're not sure yet what the feds are going to do. However, there is a smaller population that we foresee collecting unemployment. I think the schools have said not more than 20. Last year, they had many paralegals and a lot of other positions. And on the city side, I don't know of many also. However, there are a few people that may have been terminated, or they may collect a portion. Even if they retire, they sometimes can collect for a while.
Thank you. Now, this one question to the mayor through you, Mr. President. One issue that's been talked about numerous times by everybody, is there a possibility that when new employees start work for the city, that either non-union or union employees, that their charge of health insurance would be different from those already employed? Similar to what the fire department agreed to in the contract, they took less pay for a starting employee, not maybe on health insurance benefits, but their beginning pay or their step increase. Is there a time that this might be a good idea to face a new employee? I don't expect any but I mean, present employee to say, I'll pay more health insurance. But if you're coming on, my cost is going to be 40% of my health insurance rather than 25, or even 50% of the health insurance. If they want the job, they take the job. If they don't want to pay the insurance, they don't take the job. I mean, has that been talked about, or, I mean, I imagine we'd save an awful lot of money. With new employees, you're going to pay more insurance.
I think Councilor Clark has brought it up a year or two ago when we did get concessions, but those haven't, and I'm sure it's been discussed, but I haven't seen that happen.
Yeah, the health insurance discussion happens separately from individual union discussions, so all of those have been up in the air, but in terms of where we've been successful in renegotiating, it's been with individual unions on individual pay and benefits. Any discussion about changes for new employees would have to happen through the special PEC, Public Employee Group, and that's a lot harder, as you've seen.
You'd need, what, 2/3 or 3/4 of them to vote?
Brian, I don't know if you want to come up and go through that process as well.
On that, you need a majority of the PEC, the voting block of it. Obviously, each union member is part of the block, so therefore, it's weighted to which unions have the most employees. So obviously, if the teachers have a bigger union, they have the weighted vote. Once you get 51% of the vote, that's all you need in order to make necessary changes to those areas. Also, just to let you know, on the 12.8 that's in the budget, it's actually, the calculation we have originally is 12.840. We actually reduced that somewhat already. I'd be concerned if you drop that down any further due to, we are a self-insured fund, meaning all claims go through us. Obviously, health insurance isn't decreasing. The effect that the state has had with the new plans and procedures covering a lot more people without adding additional cost. If you're a husband and wife and you have a child now 24, 23, 22, they now covered. So we added more people without adding any more cost. Therefore, our claims could go through the roof, and I could be back in increasing rates during the year. This figure does not cover if I have to increase rates during the year. So I'm already concerned about our health trust fund being stable. I mean, right now it looks fine. It's not as healthy as I think it should be, and I'm concerned going forward with that.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions regarding employee benefits? Councilor Joseph.
Have we discontinued certain packages that we were offering, like Master Medical, or have we discontinued some options for new employees that they can't get
Not that they can't get, but through the PEC, last year, we got rid of the Master Medical. We changed some co-pays and, very aggressive. I think in all, it saved around $1.2 million.
Okay.
Now this year, that'd be $2.4 million that we'd be looking at this point in time. So fortunately, that move is ongoing. Every year, that savings.
Okay, so new employees can't buy the Cadillac.
The Cadillac is an option to anybody. The Cadillac is removed from everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for underemployed benefits? Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Brian or Dick, I kind of skipped through one meeting that you were having about the GIC, and I can remember you yelling at me, how do you like the GIC? And I kind of yelled something as I went out the door. Are we going anywhere with that? Are we any closer? Has anything changed over the last year or two that I know you kind of looked at it and thought that we weren't going to get much out of it? Is it still there?
So we still look at the GIC. The state has come out with some new options, which I don't think are favorable at this point in time during plan design. And yeah, you were walking through as we were doing some open enrollment benefits fair, and I asked you how you're doing the GIC because you happen to have it and you seem very comfortable with it, which is nice. The problem with the GIC from the city's perspective is that there are plans on there that are more costly than our highest price plan. So if people jump on and they jump onto the highest price plan, it actually costs the city more money. We're very fortunate in the area that we are in that most of our hospital utilization is within our area, and we are not in the high expense area such as Boston and whatnot. So we have very favorable rates. We also have very rich benefit plans, no doubt about it. More so than the GIC plans that are option. That's why when communities have tried that route, they've actually had an influx to the higher price plans because they want to have comparable benefits, and it costs the city more money. There's one city that I can't remember the exact number, but it was hundreds of thousands of dollars more for that town to absorb in health insurance costs by going to the GIC, and that's not what they expected at all.
So if you live in the eastern part of the state, chances are those cities and towns are doing well because they're on the GIC, because it's worth it for them to get on the GIC because it costs so much to go to a hospital in those areas.
Right. The difference of plan cost isn't as great as it is here.
Right. I hope cost doesn't go up anymore here.
I agree.
But that's, okay, thank you. That's the first, by the way, time that I really understood that, why we can't get in the GIC. And now I understand it. So thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments regarding employee benefits? We'll move on then to miscellaneous, page 51. Miscellaneous, total $1,086,200. Mr. Saracen.
Yeah, I just want to point out one item that is a little bit concerning. I think it's very tight, although you wouldn't think so. General insurance, we are facing possibly up to a 15% increase in our premium next year, mainly due to the loss history over the past few years. We've had some tough claims, and we are trying to take advantage of all the rewards credits as much as we can, and by having training, we get credits. Or if you attend a seminar, if anybody goes to a seminar that Maya puts on, we can get a credit towards our premium. So I just wanted to point that out. That is very tight on that line item.
Councilor Joseph.
Is there more that we can do in the area of training when it comes to general insurance? Is there, can we have safety teams, safety meetings, documented safety procedures that we probably don't have that we could get better breaks on our insurance?
Well, we were able to get a good package from some departments. One major participant was the police department. They have quite a bit of in-house training, and that helps. That in any one school or city attending seminars that they put on or any other in-house training, we just inform them. Or safety measures, roof repairs, so there's no internal damage to buildings, just keeping up. Part of it is, I think the in-house training is not as easy because you have fewer departments, fewer people that have time to go to these training seminars. That sometimes is difficult.
Oh, an hour meeting once a month, if it could save us some money, would be well worth it if we had a safety team within the building.
Yeah, I think HR, and they do as best they can, and the departments do the best they can with police, fire, and schools.
Okay.
Councilor Tran.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Saracen, last year we appropriated $40,000 for the Johnny Appleseed Trail. In 11 months, we spent $29,000. So is there a reason why we're increasing it by $10,000 for next year?
It's an expense that's paid quarterly. It's a good thing. It's kind of like the Medicaid billing commissions. What this represents is 25% of the room tax that the city gets from the state. As soon as we get that tax, we turn over 25% of that to the Johnny Appleseed Association as part of our participating in contributing to the promotion of the region. So through 3 quarters, we've spent just under $30,000. So the $40,000, it's very tight. The 50 is assuming that we may have even more activity. One big contributor would be the Cocoa Key Resort. That really increased our, by them increasing the occupancy, it increased the tax that the state got, and we in turn get it, and then we give 25% of what we receive to the Johnny Appleseed.
And the $2,000 increase in the Montezut Regional Planning Commission? Is that an obligation that we have to make?
Actually, we did get the bill, and to be honest with you, it's just under $11,000, so it is an item you could cut by $3,000.
Thank you.
Okay?
Any other questions or comments regarding miscellaneous expenses?
Mr. President, if we can record what Mr. Saracen just said regarding the cut.
Proposing a $3,000
Yes.
cut in Montezut Regional Planning Commission?
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments regarding the benefits? Hearing none, we'll move on to the Assessor's Office, page 16. Good evening, Mr. Caputi. Assessor's Office, Personal Services, $266,909. Assessor's expenses, $45,700. Total budget, $312,609. Mr. Caputi, any comment or just field questions?
Have any comments? My budget's pretty much the same as last year, with the exception that I'm all by myself now. Hopefully change soon, but if you have any questions, I'll try to answer.
Councilor Tran.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Caputi, the assessor's expenses, last year we appropriated for that expense $46,700. With 1 month left, we still have over $40,000. Why the unspent? so much unspent
Contracted
money?
services for the personal property, we only went for 2 years, the revaluation year, and then the following year I didn't hire anybody, trying to anticipate the next 3-year contract. That contract ran out. I had the money, but the contract ran out. So we're going out to bid right now for another 3-year contract. So that contract will carry me into the next next revaluation. Most of that contract, the contracted services go out to personal property. Somebody come in to do that work.
Okay.
So there's almost a year of not spending any of that money. And some of it was, excuse me, I encumbered some money last year, used up some of that money to go through the half of the year to finish out the reval year.
So the
And
unspent
that money wasn't used. This money here wasn't used this year.
Okay, so will the unspent money be carried over to next year and be paid for the expired
I
contract? Would be-
encumbered previous year's money to
Okay.
pay some of those bills. This will start out at $15,000 July 1st. And hopefully, somewhere in the middle of July, I'll have a new contract for, I have to show the state a cyclical 3-year contract that somebody is doing the personal property. It's the only thing I don't do. I monitor it, but we just have somebody collect the data, and then we input it. And we price it out and appraise it.
So what happens if you don't show the state that we have a contract in place?
Well,
with you?
because we're essentially, we're a 3-man board, but essentially 2 people do the work. They could say a city of this size, for the amount of parcels and the number of personal property accounts, 2 people can't handle it, so they like to see that you have some support.
Thank you.
Counselor Joseph.
How aggressive are we at going after another assessor? Have we got candidates in? Soon do you see that as being filled?
Right now, I'm not too hopeful the way things are going, but just put out another advertisement, and the first advertisement didn't include the salary range. This advertisement included a salary range. We've had a couple people that have assessing experience apply. We've had people apply, but there's a lot of people job hunting, so the people that don't have assessing experience. So we're going to give it another couple weeks and interview the people that we have and see where it goes from there.
Is there a certain training that they have to go through for municipal, if they are?
Well, an appraising background would help, but appraising is a good background, but they need an assessment administration background if they're going to be any help to us. The state offers courses. They offer courses to become certified as accredited assessors. That's why I think it's essential that we get somebody that already has a background.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments regarding the assessor's budget? Thank you, Mr. Caputi.
Thank you.
Moving forward to IT, page 18. Good evening, Trevor. Information Technology Personal Services, $91,877. Information Technology Expenses, $4,500. Information Technology Services, $285,000. Total budget of $381,377. Any comment before they ask questions?
No, not too much. I'm happy with the work we've done. It's been a lot of work this year. I think you guys will notice in my status sheet that I still have quite a bit of money left, but I'd like to remind the council that in IT, you hold on, well, at least our policies, we hold on to that money as long as we can, and then we replace equipment at the end of the year, which is what we're going through right now. My warrant this week is probably $15,000, and that's not even buying replacement equipment yet. It's just paying off the rest of our cost, our contracted cost for the year. We were hit by lightning at the police department Saturday. I was in there for several hours bringing equipment back up. If we would have lost a rack of switches or 2 servers, that money would have been gone. So we dodged the bullet Saturday night, but I believe that I will probably use most of my money this year.
Questions or comments? Counselor Tran?
Thank you, Mr. President. Are there any upgrades and/or new technologies you're looking to introduce to the city
Have I, or this coming up next year?
coming up?
Probably not much. We are still in negotiations for a phone system, which I know is something that you've been very aware of. We've been meeting with several different companies, been negotiating contracts. Originally, I was hoping to replace the phone system and buy a voice-over IP system. It looks like now we're not going to have that capital investment. We won't see that money. So what we're looking at now is leasing. So what we'll do is we'll give all of our phone lines, our Centrix lines, to a company. They'll start managing them, make a small savings, and then we'll invest in a leased phone system for the next several years. I really do believe that's our only option, so I expect to see that this year. I think after that, we'll replace some servers. We'll go up to a 2008 domain. We've replaced 2 servers this year to 2008, but we're still integrated, our domain. So this year, we'll see our entire domain go to 2008, and that'll be equipment that I'll buy this year, at the end of this year. And we'll start integrating a new operating system for the PCs this year as well.
Have you looked into introducing Wi-Fi to the city?
We have. There's a lot of hidden costs there. Setting a public Wi-Fi hotspot up is something we can do for a monthly cost. Having our network on a Wi-Fi is something that's a little more concerning because we have to firewall every access point to protect the outside, the public from getting onto our network. So it really isn't an option. I think with this latest project that the fire department we've been working on the tower, I think we might see some more options with that. There'll be space on that pole for us to start looking at point-to-point networks, that type of thing, to really open up that avenue. But I wouldn't expect to see too much of that this year.
Trevor, did you take part in the transition of the old website to the new website?
Yes. Yeah, that was our doing. We did that on very short dollars using a local company, Figure 7, which we've been very happy with. And we've transitioned from 1 or 2 people managing the web page to each department being responsible for their portion of the page. So we're kind of spreading the work out. It was a difficult way to do it because we had to build our own content. But I'm happy with the way it looks, and it's obviously a work in progress. I've trained some individuals 1 time and they pick it up. I've trained some individuals 5 times and they still haven't figured it out. So it's a bit of a struggle to have people maintain their own portion, but I think it's worked well. It's a very good content management system.
Good job on the website, though.
Cheers, thank you.
Thank you.
If I could, Trevor, I'm not sure if this is for you or for the mayor. When the IT department was created and it was placed under finance administration, last year at some point there was talk of IT becoming a entity out through the mayor's office, along with legal and
Human
resources. Is that something that's still being considered, or have we finalized that it's going to stay here in administration, finance administration?
It's still a move that's being considered, but given the amount of other reorganization we did this year, we felt that this was not the year to make that type of move.
Okay. Any other questions or comments regarding IT? Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Trevor, is there any collaboration between the city's technology and the school department's technology?
We keep in touch with each other. They've actually built a much larger IT department than we have. When I first started managing technology, before the IT department, when I first started taking over technology, they were struggling, and we did a lot more with them. Right now, we are in charge of their administration office. So I have 1 server and maybe 12 PCs in the administration office over there, several notebooks, that type of thing. We helped them last year receive the cable modems for their networking. So we've always kind of helped them in the background in that sense. I don't think they realized at the time that they could get free internet access to all their schools. We helped spec out their firewalls so that they can use, at the time, we were thinking they were going to dial into our Munis system, our financial system. So we set up these firewalls, we spec'd them out, and they ordered them, they set them up with a contractor. It doesn't look like we're going to use that now, but now they have secure networks at each school. And we've worked with FATV. We've been working with Alan Toomley over there. There's some interest in replacing some equipment that we are talking to him about.
But I mean, as far as telephones and just general IT thing, the telephones, copiers.
Yeah, no. It's unfortunate, but the budgets are separated, and it's very difficult. They have a much cheaper, much stronger purchasing, not department, but schools in themselves can purchase software and hardware much cheaper than we can. So they don't cross the line somehow for some reason, which is unfortunate. Because together, I think that we'd be a much bigger, stronger department, but...
I would think so. I would think there's an end round, there's a way to get around that somehow.
Yeah, it's something that we should continue to look at. It'd be nice if we could, because they have resources that we don't have.
It just doesn't make any sense for the city to go after X amount of copiers at such a price, and the school department, which is, it's all coming out of this one barrel, right? Doing the same thing, getting a lesser price. It would make sense if they both got together.
Yes, sir.
Maybe even got a lesser price, unless that makes too much sense.
Well, and just the
It's
tech
using
support.
logic, Counselor.
I'm sorry.
And the tech support, obviously, I agree with you completely, to be able to have a couple of technicians that could manage, instead of Phil or I having to scramble all the time to try to keep things running. Yeah, it would be nice to have some...
I think at IT, that there has to be, I'd like to see one department work with the other and collaborate with the other, but I think in IT, when it comes to the city and the schools, there could be a major collaboration there that we could save some money there.
Yes, sir, I think so.
Thank you.
If I could follow up on that, Trevor. You commented that we have some computers, and correct me if I'm wrong,
No, it's okay.
whatever pieces you said at the school department that you're responsible for, and you mentioned other things that you did at the school department. Do we get reimbursed out of the school department budget for services provided for IT?
No, not for IT services. They bought their own notebooks. They replaced several notebooks in their admin department, and they bought the notebooks. We helped set them up, and that's the end of it. So we didn't purchase any equipment this year for the school department.
I understand you didn't purchase any equipment, but you were there on city time doing school department
Yeah, there's...
function. The school department has their own budget and has their own IT department and their own IT line item. I am not opposed to the city and the school department working together in coordinating and helping each other out, but the reality is that's a cost associated to the city side of our budget, and maybe we should look into getting reimbursed for that.
Yeah, a year or two ago, I think the enterprise funds paid a little bit to IT, and I don't believe that's happening either.
Any other questions or comments regarding IT? Thank you, Mr. Bonilla.
Cheers. Good night, everybody.
We're moving forward to purchasing, page 20. Mr. Donahue. Purchasing, personal services, $162,192. Purchasing expenses, $4,500. Total purchasing, $166,692.
Yes, Council. Nancy Wilson, unfortunately, she has some personal issues, so she couldn't attend tonight, so I'm covering for her. There isn't a lot of items on her budget. There's a little bit of concern with the dues and subscription accounts, but after discussion with her, we believe that she can, if she runs slightly over that, she can absorb it slightly in some of her other areas. But as I said, it's not a real big budget, so there isn't really much there. Any questions?
Councilor Joseph.
know she's not here to defend it or whatever, but it's just that it seems like we have a lot of different departments that have 5, 10, 15, 20 people in the department with one clerical person. And we have a department that has one person and one clerical person. I mean, is that a person, can that person be shared? Or, I know it used to be that we had a purchasing agent, or assistant purchasing agent, and clerical, but is there really the need to have one clerical for one person?
There is, actually, the rules that the state governs for purchasing have increased quite a lot throughout the years recently, and put more burden actually on that department, and getting, so to speak, ticking and tying all the right steps so that the city doesn't put themselves in a bad position. The two of them in that staff handle all procurement for the city, including schools and everybody else. It's quite a cumbersome area. We try to keep it from being bogged down as best we can. I'm looking actually to have other departments assist with some of the procurement, writing some of the bids and getting it ready so that that department can review, assess, make changes, modifications, and do it that way instead of starting from scratch trying to write the whole thing. That way the process can run a lot smoother. We can get things done better, more efficient.
I guess my question is the bottleneck, but is the overwhelming amount of work being done by the purchasing agent and not by the clerical person?
The purchasing agent does the higher level issues. The clerical, she strictly does a lot of the clerical things. She's excellent at what she does. I think she goes above and beyond some of the clerical functions, which is nice. But Nancy has the expertise and the knowledge to do the bids and the documentation.
I mean, it's obviously an area that the city is suffering in right now because there is a lot of extra work in that area, and we're losing, or we're pushing out things at the school department, and we're losing, we're not losing, but our projects are getting further and further behind. And what's the solution to that problem?
As I mentioned, through some of the reorganization, actually, we're trying to build up some of the areas which can assist in some of those functions so that it isn't as cumbersome from beginning to end in that department, so it would speed the flow of projects going out. That's the goal.
Okay.
Councilor Di Natale.
Can you kindly explain to me what the function of the printer is?
The printer does all the printing throughout the city. She's excellent at what she does. She does all citywide stuff. She does all school-related stuff. If you went to the high school...
What exactly does that mean? She does all the printing stuff. What does that mean?
They send her, for instance, the handbooks for the schools. The budget that you have in front of you was done through the printing downstairs. Business cards, invoice slips, purchase orders, all the templates that the city has all get processed through there.
And that's a full-time, 8-hour-a-day job?
That is correct.
She actually bills some of the $41,000 is a lot of money. Thank you.
Counselor? A few years ago, that same question was raised, whether it would be cost-effective to job it out. And somebody actually did some research and came up using one of the companies like Staples or one of those for the volume that they did for the whole year, and they came up that it would have been about $62,000 to $65,000.
Okay, but
There's a lot of volume.
just 8 hours a day, that's how much printing 8 hours a day, cranking that machine. I don't know. Thank you.
Councilor Tran.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Donahue, you just mentioned that the printer does some work for the school system. Is the printer a position shared with the school?
She bills for her work out to the other sources.
Thank you.
Councilor Salamito.
Thank you, Mr. President. Brian, the job of the purchasing agent is to review bids for all departments, correct?
For all city.
Okay. And I'm looking at the new reorganization plan that was presented to us about 2 weeks ago. And one was a business manager for the DPW, and the other is a contract administrator, the grants manager finance. Each of their duties are to work with finance and administration to complete and review bid documents, to solicit bids and quotations for goods and contracts, and to review and evaluate bids and quotes, and to issue purchase orders. Well, my question is, why are we hiring 2 people at an approximate cost of, according to this, $65,000 to $80,000 each, when that work is being done by the person in the purchasing department now?
That wouldn't be their only function. The only function of purchasing is purchasing.
Right.
These people would assist. So if there's for instance, the DPW person, if there's a truck or something of that nature that they're looking to get out, that person would assist with writing the bid specs to go out, assist with the newspaper. Everything would still be approved through the purchasing department. But these people, the goal is to have them kind of get all the work, all the legwork. Do all the legwork, get it all set up. And then all Nancy would have to do, hopefully, is kind of review it, make any slight modifications that she could send back to them, so she doesn't have to stop what she's doing, do that. In the meantime, she can review the fire department's purchase order, or, the treasurer's office if we have a purchase order, so that she can stay at the high-level stuff. These people can assist her with all the legwork and get everything flowing through that office. That's really our goal here.
And they are mostly paid for by CDBG, so they're essentially doing the CDBG contracts, which a purchasing agent currently does not do. That was a concern that I believe a couple of counselors here had stated. They wanted to make sure that all the Ts were crossed and the Is were dotted when it came to CDBG, home funds, HUD funds, any of the federal contracts. And those are done primarily through the folks in that are going to be reporting directly to Brian rather than Nancy.
But then, how are they going to get paid? By CDBG, or are they just doing the CDBG work and getting paid by the city?
They're getting paid for by CDBG mostly, and partially by the city.
What my fear is, Brian, is that if we use that, for lack of a better word, a mentality, DPW does it, and they have a person who reviews the bids. My fear is that another department is going to say, well, we want the person assigned to us, to the fire department, to do the bids for fire equipment. And then the police department is going to come along naturally, and that's not derogatory, please, but, we want somebody to review the bids for us. If we do it for DPW to review the bids and it not being done by the present person, and I'm not trying to use a name, but by Miss Wilson, are we not setting a precedent of every department having their own little bid review person at $65,000 to $80,000? And it may be paid for by CDBG, but that's not going to stop another department for asking for that same position to be paid for by CDBG.
I would say that no, for 2 reasons. First is that I would frankly hope that this and any other city council would cut those types of positions should they see them in the budget. And the second is the 3 individuals, the business manager and the DPW, as well as the 2 positions in contract and grants administration. There are 3 people that are already doing just that for CDBG. What we're also asking for is, in addition to their current duties, that they take on additional duties in the DPW department. It would be to oversee contracts being implemented by DPW workers, as well as wastewater and water contracts. And in Brian's department, it would also be to assist in purchasing and other grants that the city should take in. So in the reorganization, we're essentially taking the amount of positions we're eliminating and the amount of positions we're creating, the positions that we're creating actually have more responsibilities and more duties. So this is not that we're creating extra positions, we're actually, by reorganizing, writing in extra duties into FTEs, full-time employees, even though they're in different departments and they have different job descriptions. So we're essentially getting more out of each FTE, if that makes sense.
And I don't want to get into the reorganization. Tonight is not the time. But I guess the comment to that is, I think we're paying a lot more money for it, but that's for later date. But that was my only question is, are the other departments going to be looking for that same person to review all the bids?
I wouldn't think so. You know, the volume that comes through is a lot through DPW, a lot through regular city.
And you wouldn't see that for the fire department down the road?
They don't have the extensive procurement requirements that some of the other ones. Obviously, school is one of the bigger requirements. I could see the school maybe saying, look, we want to put someone on, but that would be the school's dime, not ours, so to speak.
Thank you.
Councilor Joseph.
The concern goes along with the CDBG portion of your job. Right now, you are the treasurer and tax collector, which is a full-time plus job. Now you're the full-time treasurer, tax collector, and manager of CDBG programs. Did you invent another 20 hours in your day, or is it doable?
The workload is very extensive. You know, if you want to know actually what I do right now, I'm treasurer collector. I'm director of finance administration. Under me comes the auditor, the assessor, purchasing, IT, and treasurer collector. I'm acting community development director, and right now I'm also the munis administrator because Ken Wilson has left. So I have quite a lot of job functions at this point in time.
How do you see that? What is being done to help you do that better? I mean, I don't understand what in this organization has allowed you to do that whole function any better. You haven't got any more people. You've got more people that have more responsibilities, which is giving you more responsibility.
It's very difficult at this point in time. There's a lot that goes to my job. You know, I'll go home, I put my kids to bed, and I check my emails and do work at home. You know, that's part of what I do. You know, there's a lot on my plate.
And your bottom line here of the $310,000 that you have for personnel services, it's really $130,000 more than it was last year. You get 3 additional people.
Councilor, are we jumping to the treasurer's office from purchasing?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
We can go there if everybody's done with purchasing. We're done with purchasing, I'll just read the treasurer's office because that was next, and then we can get to that, Councilor, okay?
Did you want to start with parking? Parking's actually a page before if you want to. That's under my discretion also. Page 19 is actually.
I don't have that on our list, but we will go back to it.
It falls under the treasurer, that's all.
Okay, we will go back to parking on page 9. Is that, Councilor Joseph, would that be all right? And then we'll come to the treasurers. We'll go to the parking on page 19.
It's funded by grants, also 0 and 0.
Right, but that's the total.
Yes,
Right, okay.
it's covered by the
Right.
receipts.
On parking administration, it's $76,174. Parking expenses, $138,000. Both of those are balanced out by the meter and parking garage receipts. Does anybody have any questions on page 19? Councilor Di Natale.
I said this last year, and I'll say it again, your parking staff are exceptional. Especially Mr. Forrest, who's the foot soldier out there, along with Sean. But I'll tell you, he's a phantom, that guy. I've personally living on Main Street, you know, I paid all of my tickets, obviously, but I will, you know, go inside for 5 seconds, and he's nowhere to be found. It's It's like he's hiding in the bushes somewhere, and then bingo, right there. And I know with those two, we're getting more than what we're paying for in violation fees and whatnot, because even though there's only two guys, and Mike's the employee and Sean's the supervisor, but they're phenomenal. I don't know how they cover the city as much as they do. I see Mike out there walking. I mean, people fear him because they don't, people are going to pay for the parking, knowing he's out there. And he does a wonderful job, and so doesn't Sean. So you're well-staffed in that area, and I'm very pleased to see the amount of work they're doing.
Thank you. I'll pass it on to them. They are exemplary employees, the both of them. I'm very lucky to have had them here when I came into this position.
Any other comments or questions regarding parking? We'll move forward to the Treasurer's Office, page 21 and 22. Under Finance Administration Tax Collection, Personal Services, $310,954. Tax collection and treasury expenses, $280,000. Contract grant expenses, $4,550. Tax title, $50,000. Total of $645,504. On the next page, 22, workforce management, $97,249. Questions or comments for the treasurer, tax collector office? Councilor Joseph.
My only comment is just that, Brian, you're doing a great job. Just hope that you don't have a heart attack and die. This whole stuff about giving Mr. Laxo and yourself all this extra responsibility without any extra compensation and without any extra clerical and things like that. It's just that I don't know how you're going to do it next year, and I'm very concerned about CDBG reporting, getting in on time and correctly, especially where, half of it's now going to be on the 4th floor, and the other half of it's going to be down here on the 1st floor, and hopefully those two will talk in order to get the right reports out so that CDBG doesn't get interrupted.
Sure. I think you have every right to be concerned. I'm concerned with it also. There's a lot there, and I hope I have a good grasp of it, and I'm going to do the best job I can at it.
Thank you.
Councilor Di Natale.
I just wanted to comment on the taxes, the tax collection itself, the revenues we're taking in. I'm using the May status C, which reflects revenues through April, 1 month behind. So there's basically 2 months left of collection or reporting. I just want the public to know that looking at this, we have, the treasurer has collected $713,000 in taxes that were owed from 2009 to years prior to that. That's not including the taxes that were sent out for collection in the fiscal year 2010. That's a year ago prior, $713,000. So I point that out every year because I get some questions from people saying, well, what are you doing about delinquency and people who haven't paid their bills within a year? Are we collecting that money? And I believe we assume a 95%, or is it 90, what's the percentage collection rate we assume for the revenue? How much do we plan on collecting in the current year of tax, for like fiscal year 11? Is it 98%?
I think last year we did 98.
Okay.
Council, if you look 2 lines down from that, you'll see the $542,000.
Yes.
That's also collected in prior year's taxes.
Okay.
Of tax title, so the net of prior is 1.2 million plus.
1.25 million. So the Treasurer's Office, in addition to collecting $33.5 million for fiscal year 10, has collected $1.25 million in back taxes from prior years. So, to those who contact me and ask, what are we doing? Are we sitting on our hands? I always tell them we're not, but just to emphasize to them that we are going after delinquency, and that 1.25 helps us in meeting our revenue target for the current year that we do not go 100% collection. But my question to you is, this says 33.488 million we've collected through April. We've got 2 months left. I'm talking just the real estate taxes 2010. We got 2 months left of reporting. Using that collection rate for the year, I mean, it looks to me like we're going to go over the 35.9 or meet that. Is that not true?
That would be hopeful. I just sent out demands. They had to do, tomorrow is the final day of the demands. Demands definitely get money generated in off the current year's taxes. It would be nice that if, it's all said and done, I'm over 100% revenue collections. I mean, that's all free cash at that point in time.
I just noticed that you're almost at 94%. You got 2 more months, so it's looking pretty good. I mean, if current trends hold, but is the demand notices that get charged, those are late fees, and those are factored into that line, real estate taxes 2010, or is that?
A separate line item. That will go under penalties and fees. The fee the tax still comes here, the interest goes to the interest line item, and the fees go to the fee line income.
Okay. And motor vehicle excise for 2010, we're only at a 64% collection so far. Is there any concern in that area with 2 months to go?
Sure, there is some concern. However, the final commitment is collected just in the month of May. There's a big commitment that was due. So once we post those entries, then we should see where we are. Hopefully, the goal is when we offset all collections that I meet 100% of what we expected.
Okay, thank you.
But in this tough economy, obviously, collections are tough and very demanding trying to get the money that's due the city.
It's very comforting because, usually we only focus on expenses when we're talking about free cash. But on the flip side, whatever we're spending, if our revenues far exceed what we've spent, that's an added bonus. So that caught my eye, was all that revenue that we're getting that is doing pretty well in a down economy. So that's encouraging.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the treasurer tax collector?
I would like to make, excuse me, Councilor, if I don't mind, if I may comment on a few of my line items. Cash flow is what I run by. I'm a fan of I spend late in the season because for our accountant, I just assume hold on to my cash as long as I can. And that's what I've done. I do have a fair amount of office supplies that are going to be expensed out in the last month due to the new regulations for right of privacy. So obviously I've put some money into there. Next year, obviously, we drop that a little bit. The other one I have is postage. I just want to notify you that I do postage for the city itself. I don't do it just for my department. The last month of the year, I'll be sending out bills. I'll send out 15,000 to 17,000 bills. So obviously, my postage account will get hit the last month of the year. The only line item I have a concern with is the data processing account. When we originally did the budget, we were basing it on where we are this year. We are looking to do a modification to our Munis system. We're looking to outsource that at Munis. It benefits the school department. It benefits the city. It's a very nice proposal they've given us. We are in the discussions with it right now through procurement. The only drawback is it will exceed what I have budgeted for possibly $15,000. However, if I stay within that page, I believe I can absorb that additional cost as long as those budget line items aren't adjusted, because I can stay on that page. There'll be some cost incurred there that we don't see that I need to absorb elsewhere on that page. So I just want to put it out there that, I'm defending that as a page, not strictly line by line, even though I need pretty much every line in there. However, I believe I can absorb that, unless, if I can't, I'll be here in front of council asking for additional funds for that Munis contract. That's the only outside thing that we have that wasn't expected at that point in time. And that is outsourcing Munis. We currently run the Munis server here. We'll be shutting down that server, and it'll be up at the Munis office in Maine, and they will handle all server-related issues. So therefore, the benefit is, as the years go, the city doesn't have to now purchase a new server for that function. So we'll see the benefit over the 3 years, and we'll absorb that additional $15,000 just in server cost alone. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any-
Anything else? We will move forward to page 23, debt service. We have maturing debt, $3,250,000. Long-term debt interest, $1,530,828. Short-term debt interest, $400,000. Certification cost and band, $50,000. Total for debt services of $5,230,828. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilors, read the wrong line. I was doing last year's. I am sorry. We will start from the beginning. Maturing debt, $3,125,000. Long-term, $1,475,000. Short-term, $400,000. Certification and band, $50,000. Total of $5,050,000. I just saved us a couple $100,000.
Yes, you did.
Councilor Di Natale.
Mr. Doheny, what are certification costs?
Certification costs are costs that we pay our service provider and the bond rating companies for certifying our bands, our RANs, SANs, any borrowings that we do, bond anticipation notes, revenue anticipation notes, state anticipation notes, we issue throughout the year. So we have to pay costs incurred for all those issuances, and that's what that is. That covers all those. And we do have a fair amount of those scheduled. We have a bunch coming up this June, and we have some scheduled for next year to do an official bond rating.
I hate to ask, I probably know the answer. Do you expect to spend $50,000 in 1 month? I mean, I'm sorry, $36,000 in 1 month?
It is possible because the bonds we have, they're being issued on June 18th, I believe, is the official date that they go out. So therefore, we don't know the incurred cost because of the dollar value, they will have to have a rating with Standard & Poor's, or they will have an opinion, not necessarily a rating from Standard & Poor's, so that will cost. First Southwest will take a fee, and Edwards, Palmer & Dodge, who does the bonding agency, will actually have a fee also. I'm not sure of their cost at this present time.
Is there any, Mr. Saracen, is there any way the council or, well, I'll just ask for myself, but is there any way we can get information on what accounts typically spend money in May or June? Because when I get these reports, nothing happens all year, and then I'm told by every single department head, well, I'm going to spend it all in the last month. So is there any way, and if you can't, that's fine, but I'm just curious to know what accounts in this entire budget usually happen in June? If you can't do that, that's fine. I wish there was a way we could estimate what accounts here get spent the last month of the year. So when I look at these reports every month and through 10 or 11 months, I'm not sitting here going, we spent 10% of our budget, but the 90's going to happen the last week of June. I don't know why, but you can understand maybe why I'm always skeptical when I hear that.
Yeah, I understand your frustration. Part of it is like the workers' comp. It's a strategy that the city may employ to make sure there isn't a catastrophe during the year. If we know we have 50,000, we may want to settle a case. That's a good example. Same with departments that may have money. They may have saved money, so now's the time to maybe buy the server for 10 or 12,000, because knowing next year they may not have it in their budget. But all along they need the money. The other thing, but you do, one thing that may help you is you do have the encumbrances that would give you not only what was closed out by a department, but what was closed out even after they encumbered money for an accounts payable that was on the books at year end. So that would give you a good way to check that. And I would be happy, if you had any specific accounts you wanted to meet with me, I could run some reports on Munis, right, you know. So-
Is it possible to get a Munis report? I think you've given it me before, but I believe I've misplaced it before, after I put this together. I might need to refresh my memory here, but for 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, a full Munis report that includes the encumbrances. But would it include the budget?
Well, the other item you have is the report I give out at year end, that, by totals, you have that, and
Right.
that's only 3 pages, and then you use the encumbrances.
But
But I could,
that document doesn't tell the budget, though.
yeah, it does.
It does?
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you want to look at a few things, it might be easier if we met.
Okay.
Because I think we're talking similar language, and I think you could together we could work something out where I could help you.
Is it possible I could get that document again from 6 to 10 for
Right,
each
now,
year?
could I give you the same amount of information that I give you every month?
For those years?
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I
That'd
don't
be
want to
even
give you
better.
the 300-page document, but I have those final reports.
No, just the little report you
I
sent.
can give you that.
For 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, if it's
Yeah.
not too much trouble, but
No, I have them, I can copy them.
if it's got the encumbrances, because I'm going to be going,
It won't have the encumbrances, it's as closed, and then you would have to take the encumbrance schedule separate.
can I get that too?
Yeah, I can give you that with it. Yep,
Okay.
Yep,
For each year?
yep.
Okay, because I'm asking because in the coming weeks, I'm going to be emailing the city clerk and council president, and any department head who's affected by it, a list of revised cuts. And before I do that, I want to make absolutely certain that what I'm recommending is based on the facts. Now, I believe I have that, but I want to do a sanity check with that documentation.
Okay.
Because of things like this. I don't know if my data is current with the encumbrances as much as it's current with the actuals you give me, but the encumbrances I might be a little weak on. So I want to make sure I get those down before I make any judgments on my end on what I'd like to see reduced. So if you could get me that stuff, I'd really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
If I may comment on that a little bit. Also, a lot of my expenses are quarterly, so they come the last month of the quarter. Obviously, the tax bills, as you mentioned, encumbrances. I encumber in June the people that I think I need to pursue very aggressively in land court, so I will send them to my tax title attorney in the month of June and encumber those funds. That's why you'll see my tax title account has a lot left in it, because I'm going to encumber those funds to aggressively pursue tax titles from 2010 and prior. So that's why I encumber those funds. But a lot of my things are quarterly, and I just want to let you know that the certification costs are normally always in June, because that's when we do those. Some of them are annual. They're just annual renewals, so they always get hit the last month of the year. So maybe if you wanted to look at just maybe if they could run a June '09, and you could probably see what expense went through June '09 for some accounts.
Just one other question, Mr. President, on short-term debt interest. We've spent $10,000. So what's happening there?
Short-term debt interest, it's all payable at the end of the year. I have a RAN for $6 million that I took out in October of last year. That's payable on June 30th. We make it so it ends on June 30th. A lot of my debt is due because the state quarterly payment comes in on June. I turn that money and I pay off all my bond debts. So that's going to go, a few $100,000 just on that one note. I also have $2.7 million due in other debt service.
Our maturing debt and our long-term debt are going down from last year. What's the reason attributed to that?
We've paid off some of our debt.
So-
The city's in a better financial position by doing that.
Oh, granted, but what does that say for future borrowing needs that we have?
What it does, it actually allows us to borrow more funds. The city's actually in a very low borrowing capacity. The city's positioned itself very well. And you want to have the bond agencies want to see that you're keeping bonds flowing, you're keeping your infrastructure going through this process, and they want to see that, that doesn't drop too low, that you keep rotating that into current debt, so they know that you're not all of a sudden going to get hit one year with a very large amount of debt that they wouldn't feel comfortable with. So they like to see that annual appropriation.
What is the opinion of the finance folks on what we can incur, or what we can take on for additional debt over a 20-year period? Or, well, I'm thinking we have a capital improvement plan that the mayor gave with the budget. I mean, I've asked this before, what are the discussions on equipment for like the DPW or building improvements? I mean, what's the threshold we can take on where it still leaves us at a comfortable comfortable level with the bondholders, bond agencies? I mean, what's the threat? Can we take $5 million out, $10 million out, and it won't hurt us that much? I mean,
depends on the rate, and you have to be able to pay the note in the current year it's
right.
in. Dick can elaborate a little bit, but we know our debt's going to drop. I think like 2016, Dick. I think that's the year.
It drops this year about $300,000 or $400,000. That's why there's a drop here. But even though we're short-term borrowing going into next year, we're planning to probably do a debt pay down. You can do that even though it's short-term, and then we're going to issue bonds. So so that's one thing. But to answer your question, the capital plan is available. I think the mayor's trying to work to come up with a capital budget that is dependent somewhat on the final budget and some other funds that may or may not be available during the next fiscal year. Let me just stick to debt. There is a drop-off this year in the debt, so there's an opportunity, and most of that may be taken up with school renovations, the roofs, and maybe some equipment. The mayor came up, and some of the other minor items that are in the capital plan. The biggest opportunity that the city has, and hopefully this is it's a great opportunity coming up in 2020, is if you look at the capital plan, we have no debt after that year. So hopefully that would be a great time. That's when we pay off the high school and the fire station. So hopefully at that point, you could look at a city hall, a library, whatever. You're in a great position, and hopefully the city does well in that, when that opportunity, that's a great opportunity coming up. Other than that, we have a drop-off of $400,000, $500,000 over the next few years until 2017 or so, and then it's a couple more $100,000. So I don't know if that helps, but that's part of the picture. The other picture is, as we heard from the schools, the Capital Commission, I've been very involved with that, and they're on hold because one item is which will come up whenever we meet with the council, is the boilers. There's like $2 million in boilers at the high school and at the schools. Well, we were planning on issuing bonds or whatever for the full amount, but through their efforts, they were able to package a plan that the state was receptive to, and we may get MSBA funding for that instead of Crocker, and we may only have to pay 20%, which is a wonderful gain for the city. So there are things that are ever-changing, but I think you'll find out that capital plan is more of something to start. We now have a starting point and a foundation to build from.
Okay.
All right?
Any other questions regarding debt services?
I want to make one last comment, is also, you have to be careful of my short-term debt, only because, for instance, the water damage we had is FEMA, just like we did with the ice storm. We would have to front the money and then get reimbursed later. That's something I would do short-term borrowing for.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other business, councilors? Councilor Joseph.
Just a concern, and through you to Councilor Di Natale, when he mentions things like emails with recommendations, I don't know how that does with the open meeting law. I'd rather talk those things out here or present them here than on email. And I just have a concern when somebody says they're going to do things by email, as opposed to in the open meeting, that it's not a violation of the open meeting law.
I will check with the city solicitor and get a recommendation on that. Counselor Di Natale?
Just, Counselor Joseph's right, I realized that after I said that.
Perfect.
I meant to make a statement that, because I said it last night, to send a communication just to the clerk on what I'd like for recommendation list. But at this point, after Counselor Joseph's right, I'm going to make my recommendations in open meeting, open session.
Thank you. Business.
Just another reminder about the Ward 6 meeting on Monday, June 14th at St. Francis Church, 7 o'clock. Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Have a second? Second. The motion is second to adjourn.